welcome back to my channel. I'm Kago, but some call me Kagonina with the cuteness Motswako Menage. And this is
from QnA Talks.
And together, so many times too, we're the baddest in the school, the baddest in the game, the baddest with the buzz, in our own lanes. And this, oh darling, this is QnA Talks. Now listen, we know we said the last video was the last video of the series, but we also said we want to answer some of your questions. Today's not going to be formal. Yeah. Today we're here to be, you know what I'm saying? We answer the best way we know how. We answer the questions we're asked. But before you watch this video, you need to understand certain things about what we've spoken about. We have four parts to this series. Episode 1, we spoke about identity politics. Episode 2, we spoke about
navigating spaces. We spoke about
coming out.
We spoke about coming out.
Episode 3, we spoke about dating. We spoke about pedophilia. We spoke about queer marriage. And in our last and final episode,
we wrapped all of that up.
You know what I'm saying?
We spoke about gatekeeping. We spoke about internalized homophobia. We spoke about queer baiting and how that links every video before that.
And today, we're here to answer some of your questions. Now, we put up a link, an anonymous link. Yes, guys, it's anonymous.
Don't worry,
we put up an anonymous link and we said, ask us your questions. So without further ado, darling, sit back, relax, get comfortable. Let's get into the questions. Monyangisi.
Are you going to read them out?
We'll read a question each. The first question says, what do you think about the stigma and stereotypes that heterosexuals put on homosexual people?
Let's go. What do I think about? I mean, of course, stigmas and stereotypes in any space aren't a great thing.
Yes.
Although some of them might be positive, it just relays the image that every person who is of a certain group does this thing the same way.
Exactly.
You know? And of course, it's also the root of homophobia because if you've stereotyped, say, gay people to be predatory towards men, which a lot of straight men have stereotyped them
to be,
and a lot of straight women have stereotyped, especially masculine to be, which honestly, you guys look like cardboard. I'm just joking. Anyway, once you stereotype people in that way, it fuels a lot of homophobia towards them, you know?
It fuels a lot of violence.
Yeah.
Right, and you're so right. We shouldn't, I mean, as queer people, there's certain things when I see somebody do that, I'm like, oh, that person could be queer. But I did that because we said navigating a space, you need other queer people in that space. But if you're not queer, don't stigmatize people for their actions, because then it's rooted in homophobia. So that's how we feel about it.
We're not gaydar.
We're not gaydar. Okay. Period. Here you go.
How can you be sure if you're queer?
See. Listen, we said this in episode, the last one we filmed, right? That QnA Talks is not here to help people know if they're queer or not. You need to work along that journey. If you find yourself having attractions to people of the same sex or to more than one type of person, then you might be queer, right? And it's about you going and learning more about yourself, about your attraction, and about your identity.
Well said.
Great. I mean, I am an orator, certified public speaker, state theater awarded speaker. That's who I am.
On my side, I would just say, on the one side it's you know, and on the other side you don't. You know, I know and I've known, but at this age I still question it, not because I have any attraction to men, but because I'm like, is it really possible that, you know, I can be in this minority? You know, and not to say that there's anything wrong with it, but of course, back to in our last video where we spoke about internalized homophobia, is there's a lot that we've been raised on, you know, and of course, having been raised in Christianity and there's so much negativity that you've been taught about who you are that makes you question, could I really be this person? But you know, you don't know.
We can't help you with that one. It's about you walking that journey. Number 3 says, can you realize at a later stage if you're queer? Yes.
Yeah.
We've spoken about people navigate spaces differently. People walk that journey at different stages in their life.
Yeah.
You might find out when you're 30.
You might find out when you're 50.
Exactly. And there's people we've seen who show us that.
Yeah.
Right? Caitlyn Jenner, for example.
Yeah.
It's your navigation, it's your journey. And so, yeah.
I don't like labels. Is calling myself queer just another label?
Is calling myself queer just another label? This is an interesting one because I also don't like labels, right? But I say I identify as queer.
Same.
Right? But is there a label in it? It is a label. I don't want to say it's a non-specific label. Hey, answer. I don't know.
I think, of course, we need to still be mindful of the fact that queer in itself, in its origination, was problematic because it was basically synonymous to weird. And people in the community were just basically being called weird. But over time, I feel like it became an umbrella term. And I mean, of course, it's a label as much as straight would be a label.
Yes.
But I find it more comfortable to identify as queer because I don't want to place myself, because queer for me doesn't have a specific definition like most of the identities have, you know. And I do think it's a label, but it's a label without a criteria.
That's the... Hey, Kana, you English is your mother tongue. The next one says, please speak on queer coding in Disney movies and its harmfulness. Major, theatre major. Aria, theatre major. Please speak on queer coding in Disney movies and its harmfulness. That's a big one.
It is. In Disney movies, a lot of the time.
Hold on. Let's define queer coding. For those people who don't know, what is queer coding? According to Google, this is what queer coding is. Queer coding is the subtextual portrayal of a queer character in the media whose identity is not explicitly confirmed within canon, meaning within the show, right, within the film. This concept refers to a character that encapsulates what might be considered queer traits that are recognizable to the audience but are never labeled or claimed by the content creator. And we know that happens. Let's go.
The queer code. So, what's her name again? Ursula.
Okay.
I wanted to speak about like Ursula. A lot of queer people have obviously pointed out that there is some queer coding that happens there. You know, I think what's been said is what's teased that she's drag.
Oh.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I see that now.
Yes,
I can see that.
But the issue is, she is of course then an evil character. And then again we have it's not really Disney, but in Powerpuff Girls we have she
Buttercup.
I get why you said Buttercup, but no.
The one in the I know who you talk about. Yes.
Who is also evil, and a lot of the time maybe now, you know, there's progress happening in, you know, the Popeye's are no wonderful, spectacular, but on the ones we were raised in, a lot of the times queer coding came with a character being some sort of evil, you know.
Before you continue, now that you say this, I realize it, right? There are all these characters that certainly could be queer.
Yeah.
And now that we're unpacking it, I see it.
Yeah.
And you're so right, it's always undertoned with evilness. Continue.
And I mean, that's what I had to say is, it's of course dangerous because we're really underlining the fact that clearly there is something wrong with queer people. And that's why they can portray them as evil. And I understand, but I think they portray them as evil because it's easier to portray someone as evil if they're not your normal, attractive, you know, heteronormative person, your princess, your prince, your
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Someone who is different. And queerness is of course seen as different. And that's why it's much easier to really demonize or evilize
queerness.
Characters queerness. So,
and while we're here, queer coding is important to talk about it in cartoons because it shapes younger minds and how they are first introduced to the idea of different, right? Because different doesn't always mean queer. We've said different could be whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it happens in, I think, a lot of the things we watch as well. Queer coding, I personally, I'm not a Harry Potter fan. But we now live in a time when the author of Harry Potter is saying that there were queer characters in the show. But 10, 20 years ago, when we were watching this, we didn't see that. Is this queer coding?
Do you know what I think it is? I think it's queerbaiting.
Yes.
Because I'm not saying I was in her mind, but I don't think that that's what she had in mind back then when she was writing it. But it's profitable now because, again, the social currency that is in queerness that translates to capital.
There's a difference between queer coding and queer baiting. And somehow they're both toxic, they're both regressive, and they don't do this community of ours any favor.
Of course.
Right.
Hey, how do we begin to address the unwelcoming culture that exists in queer community around closeted queers and or new queers? Some would even describe this culture as being very hierarchical. And it says thank you.
This is what we need to talk about. Because in our previous video, we had a lot to say.
That's what
But there's still even more to say. Balakhat, I must gather my thoughts. Speak again.
It says,
how do you begin to address the unwelcoming culture that exists in the queer community around closeted queers and or new queers? Some would even describe this culture as being very hierarchical.
Where do we start?
let's go from hierarchy.
Okay. We've said that there are people who want to be the only people in a space. And if you are those people, pray about it. And if you're not those people but find yourself being in spaces with those people, distance yourself, right? A lot of spaces like the space of youre is a space where these hierarchies exist, right? And for me and how I navigate them is I don't owe my queerness to anybody, and I don't owe what I have to offer to people who don't want to see it, right? And so I'm not gonna fight to be in a space where people don't want me in that space.
Of course. But I just want to touch on, I think the main thing that's being asked is how do you deal with it as a new queer?
As a new queer.
Yeah. Maybe
Or a
recently
closeted
out.
queer.
Yeah, closeted
Because
queer or...
you could be in the closet wanting to come out, but you know there's this hierarchy.
And sometimes I think, or maybe this hierarchy affects you negatively because you're in the closet not by choice. Maybe it's still your situation or whatnot and you can't come out yet. And it doesn't then afford you the allowance to be in the space of these people who have created this certain hierarchy. And on my end, I will say what I do personally, and what I suggest people do is personally I would ignore it. I'm just gonna move because this is a space I'm not wanted in. But I do understand that as a queer person, you really want to be in a queer space.
Especially if you're seeing queer people you look up to.
Exactly.
You know?
And
It's a tough one.
nothing really you can do.
Exactly. It's a tough one because you can't break the hierarchy from outside of it. Right?
Gatekeepers are gonna gatekeep.
And this is the thing. When you walk into your queerness as a new queer body, we would want you to walk into it with people who want to succeed together. We've said,
So find
I hold your hand, you hold mine. We navigate, we grow together in this queerness.
So find the people who are willing to really, cultivate each other.
Period. The next question is, oh hell no.
What?
Should I ask it?
But are they asking for your own fans?
The next question is Butle single?
Please, I was talking about serious things, yeah.
The people want to know. The people want to know.
What do they want to know?
Is Butle? It's right here. I'm not lying to you. It's right there. And it's by anonymous, so I can't tell you who. But is Butle single?
Yeah.
You don't sound convinced.
She is, like...
I think the hidden part of the message is Butle single and ready to mingle?
That's not what this show is about. That's my thing. But don't worry.
Hit Butle up, y'all. I find it very telling though how nobody has asked if I'm single. Wait, maybe the question is we'll see.
Maybe it's things.
Let's go. We don't know.
I'm 16. When should I tell my parents that I'm queer? Do you want to touch on it?
Let's start here. I think it's so important that we highlight that this person is 16 and they already know that they're queer.
Okay.
Did you say okay? The point I was making was to people watching for it. You can know from a young age.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. No, definitely.
The point is, this person is 16 and has probably grappled with this for a few months, years.
Yes, exactly.
And so it's important to recognize that people know that they're queer. Some people know that they're queer from a very young age, right? When should you tell your parents? When the space is safe to.
That's the most important thing is, as a child, know your parents. Know what their reaction would be. Know if it would change the home environment. Know if it would mean you wouldn't have a home.
A home.
Let alone the environment.
Exactly.
Just know, you know what I'm saying? But of course,
and a way to start getting to knowing, like I would say for myself, is I don't believe in coming out. Right? I don't believe you or anybody your sexuality. But the way I would navigate to see if the space I'm in with my parents is a safe one for my queer identity is to kind of tease queer conversation, right?
Emma baby. That's what I'm saying. It's important that you know your parents.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, because with some parents you can't even tease queer conversation.
But if you see a queer person walking down the street, a feminine queer Kago,
of course you let them start that conversation.
Yes.
Just listening.
It's more about listening.
Yeah, listening.
Listen in on those conversations. Exactly.
If it's a red zone there, don't do it. Don't be irresponsible about it. But sometimes, literally, if you feel that in your heart you need to do it now, do it.
Don't compromise the safety of your space doing it.
I did, but it's not. I don't recommend.
You need to know if it's worth compromising the
Yeah.
safety of your space to live in your truth.
Yeah.
That's something you would know by yourself.
Yeah.
Next question is, okay, let's go. It says, I've been particularly hesitant of coming out because I've often felt I don't fit into anyone queer. So I'd assume they don't have a single identity in queerness. So because I haven't come out and my persona isn't particularly queer, I feel out of my depth in queer spaces. Let's break it down. The labels. You don't fit into a single label because maybe you're attracted to different people, different expressions, different identities, and therefore you don't know how to exactly. Because of that, I haven't felt that I can come out because I wouldn't know what I would come out as.
Yeah.
Right? And because I don't know what label I would use to come out, I therefore don't know how I would navigate queer spaces. Because if me and you in this space say we're queer, that person says they're gay, that person says they're bi, and I'm coming saying I just have these attractions. What are we saying?
My advice would just be to, before I explain, I'd just say go with the flow. But in going with the flow, I'd say you've already said you feel like you're queer. You are queer. But you just don't find any certain one queer to fit yourself into, which is what I've done. And if anything, for me, I feel like there is types of queer that I fit into, but I just choose not to
Exactly.
box myself into any one of them. I would say do the same because this is a journey.
It is a journey.
No matter how long you've been queer, there's a lot of self-discovery that still happens.
And you can't gatekeep your identity.
Exactly.
Right? You can't say, I need to be this, and then live in the absolutes of that.
So
we said in our previous video, we identify as queer because we don't want to live in the absolutes of certain labels. And there are people who are okay with that.
my advice is just embrace whatever's in your heart.
Period.
You know what I'm saying? Just let it play out. Learn yourself. As you grow, maybe you will fit into a label. Maybe you won't. It is what it is. But, and it might sound harsh, but don't be pressed about fitting into queer space. But I'm saying it because, as we've spoken about the gatekeepers, the whatnot, when people make you feel unwelcome, you'll never feel welcome in a space until maybe you take a step back and
create a space for yourself. Next question is, Balaki Metro me.
As a bi-curious person, how does one navigate the queer space without offending or feeling like they're blindsiding those who are solid in their queerness, who they may become involved with?
Let's start here. Bisexuality as an existence in the queer community is a valid identity.
Of course.
Right? And therefore, you are not blindsiding anybody by being bisexual.
But this is bi-curious. Yeah.
It's about honesty.
100%.
It's about communication.
100%.
Without those two things, you're definitely blindsiding people.
100%. Like Kago said, it is about honesty. Go to a person, maybe you get involved, you say, hey, look, I am not sure about, and of course, again, as we said, you don't owe anyone your sexuality. But when you get involved with someone, there is an expectation of honesty. And again, this is not about you having to define yourself in a certain sexuality. But especially if you're bi-curious, you need to be honest and open about it, because maybe the possibility that you could wake up and say, actually this isn't for me, is there. So don't blindside somebody by coming into something and saying,
not having your full heart there.
yeah, you know, and then you realize, and then you say, oh no, sorry, I'm straight.
I'm not getting into this. If you're bi-curious, honesty and communication is the absolute bare minimum.
Just be honest.
Without those two things, you're definitely going to hurt people in the process.
Of course. And I mean, be ready sometimes to get a no.
Be ready to get a no.
Yeah.
Be ready to get a confirmation in your sexuality as well. When you're bi-curious, I always say to people, when you're curious and stuff, you shouldn't go with reservations. You should be open to the idea of finding yourself being queer, right? You can't be bi-curious and say, hey, but I want to be straight. I'm doing this to see that I'm actually straight. You know what I'm saying? Am I making sense?
You are, ne?
But
I feel like you don't need to do it with any goal.
I'm saying don't do it with any reservation.
Yeah, do it
openly,
because clearly you're
and
questioning, and then see where it takes you. But be open when you're involved with someone that, look, I am maybe heterosexual, I am bi-curious, I'm trying to find out and see, do I like this, do I? Equally, I'm gonna need you guys to stop being forceful with bi-curious people or straight people. But because there's people who are open about the fact that they're straight and maybe involved with you. And I'm not saying that's right. But of course, in those relationships, there will be people who have their reservations as straight people. And maybe when you feel like this person is your future otomanyala. And when they're still like, I don't know. Stop forcing them into those positions. Because you're going to get your heart broken and then you're going to be shocked.
But I think you put it well. I think we're approaching the last question. And the last question is, what are you trying to say? I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it. It says, so, on a date between two queers, being of the same gender, right? How would you advise the navigation of who's paying without getting into heteronormative traditional acts? So, the heteronormative traditional acts, I would assume, is about the expression. Because we're both the same gender, I get it. So, is the mask or the femme paying? And how do you navigate that?
I think dates in general are on the basis of who asked to. If I'm asking you out on a date, I have budgeted for myself and for you.
And you go to a place you can afford.
Of course. If you've asked me out on a date, because clearly it's not clear to some people, I will ask you, are you taking me out on a date? Or are we going out together? You know, and that would of course mean bills are split or whatever. I just think and as human beings,
yes,
that's how dates should work. You know.
But we can't deny that the heteronormativity of mass should pay and femme should
and I don't want
exist.
I don't want to lie. I don't want to lie. I can't say I'm completely removed from heteronormativity.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's something so I can't say that I'm completely removed from it.
Yeah.
There's things connected to masculinity that I've had engraved in me for a while that, you know, I would still love to do. And say I live with my partner. You know, it's different if you don't live with someone and you ask them out on a date. But say I live with my partner and we've decided, we're going on a date. You know, we're not really sure who came up with the idea. But my first thought in mind would be unpaid, you know. Because
you're the masculine.
Yeah. And that's really, and I'm not saying that's correct, that's really, you know, coming out of heteronormativity. But generally, on dates, it's like who asked who. But I never get asked out on dates, so.
I think you're right. Whoever asks who out on that first date should have budgeted enough for both to pay. If it's within you as the person being asked to say, no, I want to go 50-50. That's yours to do. It shouldn't be different because of sexuality, right? Once you've done that first date, then whoever pays for the bill should be a conversation between you two.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but I think it's also like it's different once you're in a relationship.
But sometimes you're not in that relationship, you're still getting to know the person.
Oh, I mean, but if you're getting to know the person, it's literally, again, still based on who asked who.
No, surely not.
It has to be.
If I ask you on a date.
If I ask you on a date, first date, I'm gonna pay.
Okay.
Cool chats.
Then you ask me, are we gonna have a second date?
I say, I don't plan. I say, are we gonna have a second date? You say yes, we leave it at that. Cool.
If
Then-
I initiate
and
the
then-
conversation next time, I should pay.
Yeah. But if I say, like, I'm okay with paying
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, because if I've asked for every single one of those dates, if I've said I'm taking you out,
I mean, I definitely understand that, because then it would imply that the person also has the intention of taking you out, right? And therefore it's an exchange, because you pay, I pay, because we're both asking each other out. I guess I hear that. For me, it's, yeah, man, let's go 50-50, or
Don't be
you
shy.
pay for a bill.
Don't be shy to drop racks on me.
Don't be shy to DM me. Remember that video Butler
Exactly,
said
I
don't
can't
slide in her
remember.
DMs? My DMs are open, bank details.
I was joking, guys.
Bank details in the description, y'all.
Slide in my DMs now.
Oh,
I was joking.
remember this question?
Which one?
This one. This one to me. Is
Here's my issue. Here's my issue. It's like, what? They must ask me on like my channel or something.
Yes.
Maybe I should do like a question.
A Q&A on your channel.
I don't
well,
like Q&As.
well,
People ask dizzy things.
we're trying to wrap up here.
Sorry.
Well, Butler says if you have questions that are related to her personal life, that are related to Mojolo life, that are related to bank detail life, utla channel in your high.
Exactly.
Mara, for this video, for this series, for this channel,
We're done.
you're gonna have to miss us. Sesqedile man.
We've given you all we could.
You know what I'm saying? It's been fun. Share the series, rewatch the series, make questions, answer. We're thinking, we said learn, unlearn, unpack, ding ding, this, get
Pakol.
that.
Upake.
Wait, I want to show them something. Hold on.
You know what it is. I knew it.
So, Butler and I have been talking, right? And we wanted to know, how do you guys feel about Queer Talks merch? Look at this. Get a look. This is just a demo. But we could, you know what I'm saying? And it could be the vibe. So tell us down below. Queer Talks merch. For the gays, for the girls, for the queers. You know what I'm saying? It would be so beautiful. But that's all from us today. And as always, remember, be a bad bitch.
And don't suck the dick.
Period. Bye. It's been fun. Share the series, rewatch the series, make questions, answer. We're thinking, Sesqedile man.
We've given you all we could.
You know what I'm saying? Bye.